The 1980s was a very fun and vibrant decade for NFL cheerleading. It was a decade that saw a lot of change as certain teams reintroduced cheerleaders to their sidelines, whereas other teams retired their squads. In 1980, there were 28 teams in the league, and 8 teams chose not to have cheerleaders. But that number would fluctuate throughout the decade. Both the Denver Broncos and the Chicago Bears stopped having cheerleading squads after the 1985 season. But in 1984, the Minnesota Vikings introduced the Minnesota Vikings cheerleaders after having no cheerleaders throughout the 70s. In 1986, the Philadelphia Eagles introduced the Eagles cheerleaders. And in 1987, the New Orleans Saints introduced the Saintsations after having various iterations of dancers and cheerleaders in the 60s and 70s. And unfortunately, during the 1980s, the San Diego Chargers had no cheerleaders. During the 60s and 70s, they had the Chargettes, and in 1990, they formed the San Diego Charger Girls. But during the 1980s, there was no cheer squad. And so ultimately, we go from 20 out of the 28 NFL teams in 1980 having cheerleaders to a different configuration of 20 out of the 28 teams in 1989 having cheerleaders. And here's a summary of cheerleaders from each team throughout the 1980s.
Late in the third quarter here now. 34-10, the Falcons are out front, and they have
the middle linebacker, the tackle.
And Ken Hill that time, the left guard, pulling on the play and doing a good job of blocking the left linebacker, Gary Cobb. But the Rams are continuing.
The 20, a 14-yard gain.
Came out by Walter Payton on the first series of the game. The defenses have taken over. When we go back.
The Honey Bears at Soldier Field. Tim Ryan and Johnny Morris here. Bears have the football.
2 gentlemen, next Saturday on CBS television. Brent Musburger and Eric Parsegian will bring you the NCAA today, and they have some fine matches.
So the Bucks will be started with not the greatest of field position when we come back.
Anthony Carter's hands. Darren Nelson has been a factor in the game. Everybody's involved in the offense.
Again, Jim McMahon strained knee in the second quarter, doubtful for the rest of the ball game. So Flutie has thrown touchdown passes, 3 touchdown passes.
And there was someone that
got to have some points. Let's go back early in the game. If you weren't with us, Billy Cannon, the All-American from LSU, who went out with an injury. It looked to be a rather severe injury.
They're the cheerleaders for the Eagles. Certainly not a 1-2 record for these beauties. Got to be unbeaten.
We talk about kickers and their psychic, but I always thought there were plenty of kickers. You can never run out of kickers, but believe it or not, they're hard to find. Lucid cut, brought back. Ted Chan was outstanding kicker. He was
Cowboys manhandled them during the first quarter and enabled the Cowboys to play according to their game plan.
Big play coming up for the Redskins.
His father, Robert, a veteran of World War II, and his mother, Laura, a cook in a school lunchroom. The quarterback, of course, so important, and you take a look at what Tommy Kramer has done. And
tickets are on sale. The charge ticket phone 924-3333.
We have 9:48 remaining to be played.
Sure that they cover the wide receivers, and the middle is generally the area where you might be able to find something.
As you saw, one Los Angeles team has already won today. The Rams have won their game up north in San Francisco. The Kansas City Chiefs bench, meanwhile, reports are still shaken up. And
Well, each team came away. Washington had 15 plays, missed a field goal.
The Bengals are here. Ben Zoo is here. He's a Tiger that they keep leading around too close.
Bears are the only team who have clinched the playoff berth in the NFC. They have, and the Giants came close today. The situation that's going on for them.
Oldsmobile, who invite you to test drive a new Oldsmobile soon at your nearest Oldsmobile dealer.
That was a overtime sudden death game last year, Miami-Buffalo, here in Buffalo, where Norwood won the game in the last minute.
field goal. But a year ago, Joe Plecko did not start, Marty Lyons did not start, nor did Mark Gastineau. They basically had their defensive unit intact tonight, and they are being blown away. I was going to say, they've really helped. Go back and find those other folks.
With more football after this message from the National Football League.
Gets a little slower, and then as Herschel said, you know, the defense always comes out early in the game. They come out of the locker room.
Up 352 yards a game, and today they're playing much better than that. Now maybe it's the Giants offense just as inept today.
Three undefeated teams remain in the National Football League. Washington Redskins, the Denver Broncos.
8-10, 5:37 on the clock and rolling.
And that's critical.
Gained but 2 on the ground.
Hey, Jim.
Actually, the Giants could use a little slowdown period right here to regroup offensively. Now that's a good distraction for you right there.
Okay, back at the Kingdome in Seattle. Sometimes that has moved easier than some of the offensive units here today, Larry. That's been a little bit more fluid.
Well, here, except for the last minute or so of this fourth quarter.
Yeah, you're right.
Malone's had people out and moved.
To today's game.
Not necessarily a pleasant sight at midnight, but that is. So there's
Called the Buffalo Jills up here, but they're really attractive, nice young people. 0-5, you got to play harder than that to impress these. It sort of looks like right now what we have is a snowballing effect.
Listen to these fans. They don't normally get this excited in Los Angeles over anything. Winning at Soldier Field in January. I mean, if the NFC Championship game is at Soldier Field, I don't know that there's a better home field advantage than having to play in sub-zero weather. And we pointed out at halftime the significance of what it's meant to have that home field advantage in the 1980s. You get it? It's been the road to the Super Bowl and to a winning Super Bowl.
Today's game is brought to you by Acura Precision Crafted Performance, exclusively at your Acura dealer. By the good time, great taste of McDonald's. And by First Brands Corporation, makers of Prestone Advanced Formula Antifreeze, STP oil treatment, and new STP Super Wear Control.
That is not a victory dance yet. As we start the fourth quarter, I'm Jim Donovan along with Larry Zonka. It is 10-0. The Seattle Seahawks lead over the San Diego Chargers. The Chargers have now gone 8 quarters without scoring a point.
They appear to be moving.
At the 38-yard line. Opening season for the Rams and the Cowboys. And we'll be returning to Anaheim on a beautiful Southern California night in just a moment.
And if you're looking, Don Klosterman, Jack.
line just a few seconds ago. In fact, 9 seconds, 16 yards and return a 49-yard punt. We'll take a timeout. 10-13.
A 2-game lead now, for the 49ers. Should they win this one? And it's pretty good early in the year looking back.
And going into Philadelphia, not a great place to visit.
45 yards out. And once again.
Of the period, off the clock, add 3 and lead by 23. Hard hitting of the Seattle defense, knocking that ball.
By Apple Computer, giving you the power to be your best in home, school, and business. And by Norelco Electric Razor.
They have 1 timeout remaining, and they'll have the 2-minute warning to work with. Dallas now faced with the
And the noise is back in the dome.
Played very well for DJ Dozier, and Al Fernandez did Alan Rice.
weeks. I just like what Tommy Kramer did right there. Coming back like that, a couple of key passes, bring him down the 1 yard line. You know, the guy doesn't quit.
You're right.
He's an all-pro.
Right now. Well, it's basically a backup running back.
7-0. It will be 1st and 10 for the Raiders at their own 24-yard line. Jim Plunkett at quarterback for the Raiders, and Plunkett having a marvelous day. 6 for 6, 72 yards, 1 touchdown pass, 3-yarder to Todd Christensen.
But that's in keeping in what he told us at practice yesterday. I mean, he said we expect the Packers to play a lot of zone, a lot of deep zone, not give us
some timeout. It's only fair that the latest game to start the National Football League should wind up in overtime.
Especially since we have to go to Atlanta. Tony Dorsett really has started to break out of a little bit.
Yeah.
He had 81.
Yeah, and the Raiders and the Broncos are all tied. The winner takes over undisputed possession of first place in the AFC.
Sunday right here on ABC with Dick Clark. We talk about Dorian Gray.
The biggest party! First down, the 49ers on their own 44-yard line. Seattle had a 17-7 lead. It's been chopped now to 17 to...
Too soon then. Well, it's a ball.
3 yards top. 1:40 to go, third quarter. It is a 14-9 Redskin game. Back to Joe Robbie Stadium, shall we? The stands. They're a bit of part of the controversy, I think, set up in kind of an elitist fashion. They call it a 3-tiered caste system, critics say anyway. The affluent get the choice seats. Some folks who've had season tickets for 20 years on the 50-yard line would move to the 20-yard.
Crazy Ray. Crazy Ray.
John McEnroe, and a visit with the Vice President-elect of the United States, the Honorable George Bush. Tonight's halftime features are being brought to you by Merrill Lynch, whose sensitivity to your investment goals and agility in helping you reach them make Merrill Lynch what...
Seconds ticking off inside 7 minutes.
Yeah.
Hey, Bob,
Okay.
can your volume be lowered a little? Okay, that's better, yeah.
Let's try and get some line play in this thing. I'd like to get somewhere where, you know, can you see who's in there at center? Is that still Bostic?
Let me see.
Why don't we get Neal in the center somewhere in here coming off this goal line? Well, Neal.
Yeah. That answers a couple of questions on that Ram game. The Rams, of course, remember the
Cowboys cover.
Right now, we pause briefly for station identification. This is the NBC television network.
This is WDAF TV4, Kansas City.
Cousin of Bake McBride, playing for the Cleveland Indians in baseball. Will be in there now. 1st and 20.
But never filling. And by Radio Shack, the computer experts. Mitsubishi in Japan. Sears, where you'll find great values. There's more.
Right here on CBS Sports.
Mike White, the Illinois coach, saw Byers at close-up last week. Of course, he coached Chuck Muncie when he was at Cat.
On Ernest Jackson, and the Steelers lose a couple of yards.
4-yard line. Narrow 3-yard line. Keep in mind, this drive is taking...
The All-Pro comes through again. 17-14, Bucks over the Rams.
Jim, I was just going to say that's...
Yes, it were. The Derrick Dolls are whooping it up as their team, young and handsome, as they are beautiful, play San Francisco to a standstill in this first half. You know, when Bum Phillips was here, they lost to
Drew Hill, and it'll be 1st and goal.
Today's game is brought to you by Chrysler Motors and its automotive divisions, working together to be the best. By McDonald's, it's a good time for the great taste. And by Coors Light, the silver bullet. There's no slowing down with a silver bullet.
Comes in for the Cowboys. That means Smearick in for Dutton.
It's in 28 seconds remaining.
Today's game is brought to you by Chevrolet, official U.S. cars and trucks of the 14th Olympic Winter Games, Chevrolet Price, and by Canon, manufacturer of advanced plain paper copiers.
Oh, the passing stats, that's 10 out of 13 for Jimmy and 140 yards. That's
almost the 34. By the way, since it is such a big play, after the Rams had up some real estate, he looked good. He's always on balance.
10, 5:37 on the clock and rolling.
That's critical.
On NBC Sports. What a year it was. The fact that it would come down to the second to the last day of the 162-game season. 3 of the 4 championships were decided yesterday.
.11:43 remaining here in the second quarter in the Allen. Kenny Burrow.
In a few. Down in 7. The Raiderettes are also here as the crowd is starting to fill up this Coliseum. They will not have a sellout tonight, and the game will be blacked out.
Is loving every moment of it. 5:10 and the seconds are ticking away here in the Kingdome. For San Diego, it's of course not all over, but they have put.
Tom Hammond and Dave Casper at the Hoosier Dome. Our producer Jeff Himes, our director John DeLisa.
Talking about, I mean, look for those things on each play.
Did you David,
start getting some more of the replay stuff?
That was the first time they ran the 46.
Some pitch stuff. You want some pitch?
Yeah, we can. Is David there? David?
Andy? Yeah, you got it?
Let's when the Cowboys come back, Andy, let's try to get some isolations on their fronts, because now they're starting to mix in a lot of overs, all that stuff I've talked about. And we get that 46 again, I'll be able to circle it up and show what is happening.
I'd start getting in with some of those pit things and ISOs now.
Yeah, just have it so that we can start looking at the various fronts.
Both teams, right?
Yeah.
Especially.
Yeah.
We want to start getting into it.
They've got Albert in there now. 60. Yeah, Albert's in there. Nunn.
Duda and Greer. All right. And Baker is in for Junior at right linebacker, too.
Right.
Junior got hurt before. And then we'll do that when Dallas goes on the D2. Back at St. Louis, 6-3, the Cowboys lead the Cardinals.
That's a personal foul on Scott Brantley, the rookie from Florida. All right, we'll be back here in Cincinnati. 3-0, the Bengals in the lead.
Go right on, and we'll have the climax for you, the World Series.
Man, this is very reminiscent of what happened to Tampa last week. In the first half, they were very even with Dallas, and they gave up an awful lot of yards.
With what we think is a shoulder injury, has come back and made the great play. However, Pruitt.
By the Energizer battery, good times never lasted longer. And by American Airlines, something special in the air.
Continues to run well.
I like a back who, when he gets the ball, he doesn't look for the blockers. He knows where he wants to go.
DM and PC Junior. There's a lot that's new about PC Junior, and it's all good news for you. And by International Harvester, a leading producer of trucks and agricultural equipment.
But this defense, after turnovers, has been very, very difficult. Look at this. They have not allowed to score after the last 8 pair turnovers. They'd like to keep that string alive. Hank on that last drive.
A real talented football team in the Philadelphia Eagles. Bring me Christmas night with them.
We'll see the Bengals against Minnesota. We know that it's an important game for Minnesota regardless. It could
try and get that ball and make something happen before the half comes to a close. Philadelphia leading New Orleans 31-7 in their game, and Evidently, Dave Wilson has come in for Archie Manning. There was some talk that the rookie might get the start. Manning, trying to get back from an injury, evidently started that game. But Wilson...
Beechwood aged for that clean, crisp taste. This Bud's for you. By RCA, the most trusted name in electronics. And by United Airlines.
Before the play gets off. Rain letting up just a little bit. He still, however, continues.
Preceding announcement was furnished as a public service for the National Football League. Next Sunday, join Len Berman, NFL 83.
Tampa Stadium. The score is now New England 20, Chicago 7, with 4.5 minutes to go in the second quarter of that ball game.
Today's game is brought to you by Oldsmobile. Test drive a new Oldsmobile soon at your nearest Oldsmobile dealer. By Goodyear Certified Auto Service. Nobody fits you like Goodyear. And by Dr. Pepper and your local Dr. Pepper bottler.
Lifford Hobley finally recovered the fumble, and the Dolphins will have it when we come back.
For the future, so timeout with a score now. The Redskins 20.
Special teams of the Rams. Gil Haskell is the special team coach, and they doing it.
Sam Nover, Bob Trumpy, and friends back in Houston. Maybe the best-looking array of cheerleaders in the entire.
You mentioned Doug Flutie of Boston College, one of the most remarkable athletes around. A reminder of Davey O'Brien and Eddie LeBaron, both of whom go back to your time, Giff.
I remember him quarterbacking. Colorful Los Angeles, where they have so many freeways. I'll tell you, if they ever start to rebuild, and that's all. There are the cheerleaders doing their best.
Irv went over there and grabbed 3, and we've got 5 or 6 right here waving at us. How y'all doing? Good to see you.
And they're all over. They're at 4 corners of the stadium.
Yeah, pretty little girls, aren't they?
At the moment, you can see the officials breaking up a huddle. They talk about the different rules that apply during the final 2 minutes of the game. Hank Stram, you and I will be in the Meadowlands tomorrow night for the...
See Hewitt hustling to try to get over there to get behind that picket line, but he can see it, his teammates.
Is sponsored by Miller High Life. Welcome to Miller Time. Chevrolet with performance, style, innovation, quality, and the value that make up today's Chevrolet. And by United Airlines. You're not just flying, you're flying the friendly skies.
Our producer today, Mike Weissman, our director, Ted Nathanson. We have 7.5 left in this fourth.
The field, but that time he read it.
2-1. They'll have possession when we come back. And if you're looking, Don Klosterman, Jack.
As the Miami Dolphins extend their lead on the Colts and
Today's game is brought to you by Renault Jeep, where commitment to quality and innovation form a winning team. By the U.S. Armed Forces, it's a great place to start. And by Nikon, we take the world's greatest pictures.
From running back, number 43. Coming up next today here on CBS, the 49ers against the Redskins at RFK Stadium. And Hank, everybody I talk to seems to agree that whoever loses this game will not be there for postseason play.
It's the bye-bye Blues. They got to win this one, and one who doesn't, they're out.
And Schrader. They call the Cardinal cheerleaders here the Big Red Line. They've had little to cheer about. The Cardinals, by the way, on 4th down now, are 2 out of 6 for the year. Just gambled and didn't make it.
But that's, again, the thing that Jim Hanna...
The National Football League is sponsored by Chevrolet, who invite you to see, drive, and live today's Chevrolet. And by Michelob Light, super premium taste and a less filling beer. Who says you can't have it all?
Great night if you're a Dallas Cowboy fan. They have really turned it on here in the second half. It all the time. Tony Hill with that great speed. Just
He was going to take a very definite Miami.
Star bright. First star I see tonight. Wish I may, wish I might.
It'll be the Eagles' ball at their 20-yard line.
Years.
Ernest Biner
The Derek Dolls, obviously we are in the Astrodome.
On the 34-yard line. And they will have a 1st and 10 situation with the backfield, Steve Fuller at quarterback, and Tom Sanders and Calvin Thomas, the running backs. And they have done a very, very good job running the ball for the Bears here in the...
Then he and Klecko are both 1 sack away from a Jet Club record, which is 19 held by Jerry Philbin. Said, I believe, back in 1968. That was a defensive line that I, unfortunately, that was my rookie season. You talk about a busy day.
Does she understand all of this? Does she care about all of this? Certainly a non-violent passive.
There's the college football action next Saturday on CBS, 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific. And Georgia came from behind to win it last year, 26-23. That's typical of the action between these two teams ordinarily.
I think they both won
for 24-0. Broncos well on their way to another one. They have beaten the Raiders 4 consecutive times, and they have beaten them 6 out of the last 8 times they have met, and the 2 times that the Raiders have won during that string.
Our ABC stations.
Highlights. There's some wild games coming up.
Seems like there's always a lot of wild games and upsets on the opener.
And really all the way
back. They'll take over the 20, 5:45 to go in the quarter. Rams lead 7-0.
You think it's not tough out in the big leagues? What do they call their Seahawk cheerleaders? Hawkettes.
It's a big division battle, the Vikings and the Buccaneers. Now to New York, here's Brent Musburger.
At the half, Brent Musburger and Herb Cross get together, and Dan Dierdorf is there talking about the forgotten wounded, people like Kellen Winslow and Billy Sims and some of the others who couldn't answer the gun. That's at halftime here on CBS.
How about Mr. Warner? Oh, he's some other, isn't he?
Try and dig out from behind. And remember, they haven't scored in the first period of a game this season. They've only got 1:03 to do it today.
You know what Okowitz is major? Back in Atlanta, Fulton County Stadium. Frank Gibb along Howard Cosell and Don Meredith enjoying the sights of Atlanta on a cool, blustery night. The heavy rain has not come. We've had almost a light.
They'd have more productivity as well.
It doesn't get any closer than this. NFL Live halftime activities will continue in a moment. It's scoreless at halftime. We'll be right back after these messages from your local stations.
First half. We've talked a lot about...
Realistically, I don't like their chances.
A lot of talk about some of the leading candidates for the head coaching job here. Of course, you hear the name, the big fella, Peters. Floyd Peters up in Minnesota. You've heard the name of the Los Angeles Rams defensive coordinator.
Let's flip things around now and look at things from the Tampa Bay.
NBC Sports serves your need to know all week long. Dial 1-900-454-3500 for NBC Scores Plus. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, anywhere in the USA.
In Kansas City, these are the Chiefettes.
Everything's up to date in Kansas City. They're going about as far as they can.
Midfield, Dolphin, 48-yard line. Fine return by Jeffries, 23 yards after a 56-yard Reggie Roby punt. 4:36 to go in the third quarter.
Joe Robbie Stadium in Miami. We'll be back.
Minnesota. It will be a good game. An excellent game. No chance for New England to show us what they've got this year. And Minnesota, one of the surprise teams of last year, no longer is...
素晴らしいですね。こちらはサンフランシスコ 49ers のチアリーダー、ゴールドラッシュの皆さんです。もうこれはカメラマンは我々にサービスしてくれましてですね。
Special year, and that year we came up to play the Vikings in Metropolitan Stadium, and we barely...
11:58
to go in the game. Dolphins by 20. New England's football. 1st and 10. Dolphins.
Season. And New England goes on top of Miami 6.
Quarterback. Boy, wouldn't the Raiders? Yeah, that's right. Kansas City would take either.
They go into the locker room with the 7-3 lead. The crowd's going to love it. Mike Tomczak, Ohio State and Oklahoma. 3:30 Eastern Time Saturday here on ABC. Immediately following Sports.
24-14 Oakland with 2 minutes left. Our thanks to the executive producer, Charles Milton, our producer, Bob Rowe, director, John McDonough. Particular thanks to our statistician, Dr. Bob Woods, and to all of the other fellows who worked so hard to bring the ball game to you. And there is still a lot left in it. Washington driving.
The missed wide open receivers, the wide open receivers to block the drop passes.
It's part of the game, just off the 39-yard punt. 15 remaining in the half, and again, a reminder, college football on Saturday, right here on ABC, 12 o'clock Eastern Time.
So the Bucs will be started with not the greatest of field position when we come back.
Even have expected it a little bit more. It's difficult to get a play in. If you miss one...
Good run, but the clip nullifies the game.
Well, we haven't seen many of the cheerleaders for the past few weeks, have we?
Well, they've been missed by a lot of people, I guess, too.
An assignment on ABC News, World News Tonight. So tomorrow, check us out. We're doing all right.
Boy, won't you let your Cowboys grow up and be babies? Tonight they're not. They're playing pretty well.
I'd say so. 2 minutes remaining in the first half. It'll be 4th down for the Rams. Frank Corral is on the field. Ron Fellows has dropped for Dallas. Back at Busch Stadium. They did not have a sellout here in St. Louis, therefore they're blackout.
Intended receiver Nolan Cromwell covering. I thought he could have gained a few yards at least and gotten out of bounds. Well, next Saturday on CBS Sports, be with us for the NCAA Today, followed by great action. Number 3 ranked Nebraska taking on number 8 ranked Penn State. They both won big yesterday. And the Lions, Nittany Lions, are led by quarterback Todd Blackledge. He had another big day yesterday.
Yeah, he threw 4 touchdown passes.
Cowgirls have a lot to cheer tonight. Interesting, the Cowboys opened their season with 4 straight wins. They dropped the last 2 to 79 against the Kansas City Chiefs. This ABC Sports exclusive is brought to you by the Buick Motor Division. Ball for 1st down.
I just want to say this has been a tremendous team.
Detroit Lions 16, Rams nothing.
Going into sort of a basketball tournament, if you will, to determine the Super Bowl opponents.
You all just saw Don Shula. He has been on
a game, but the Rams would be 1st and San Francisco 2nd if Washington wins it.
Well, that girl should be in Hollywood.
Well,
3:41 left in the 3rd quarter. Rams leading 16-3. We'll have some scores for you after the kickoff.
3-10. A difficult chore ahead for the Dolphins against a very tough Tampa Bay defense. Orange Bowl in Miami. The Dolphins with a win tonight and a win next week at Baltimore would have home field advantage throughout the entire playoffs. We mentioned that at the top of the show.
A basketball game, Louisville and UCLA. It starts at 11:30 Eastern Time on CBS.
Working hard on the sidelines for the Chicago Bears, but they've only got 2 minutes to try and cheer their team on to what would now be a somewhat miraculous.
That's all you want. You want to keep him on the line of scrimmage, give him any kind of a track, and he has to make the decision to run to those tracks. He did it.
Motor Company, where quality is more than priority. Quality is job one.
graphic we showed you just seconds ago.
We've got a close one going for you. Kansas City 7-3 over.
Very often we
did respond and wore a lot of blue and gold here today. Houston is ahead of Seattle 7-0 in the second.
This of 36 yards. That looked to be a pretty good job of holding the ball that time.
Home team advantage throughout the playoffs for the Buffalo Bills and the Steelers tied at 20.
Philadelphia has gained the lead against Cleveland, 17-14 in the fourth period. Late in the fourth quarter, San Diego is pulled within a touchdown at Kansas City, 19-12. New Orleans trying to embarrass Chicago on the Bears' home field, 10-0 Saints in the fourth quarter. Baseball scores.
It's a festive time here in the Orange Bowl with 10:43 remaining in this game between Miami and Dallas in the third quarter.
Now, 10 interceptions on the year, and that's not good.
Plunkett is also one of the few quarterbacks, I think, left in the National Football League who calls his own plays. There's not very many guys left.
Who's had a reawakening coming from Detroit for the Ranch.
Yeah, he said he loves it. He said he would have played any position on the field to get here. And he's playing that U-back for the Rams.
One of the Cowgirls performing for the capacity crowd here at Texas Stadium, and Don Meredith will take a walk down memory lane as he investigates the growth of cheerleading in football and relive.
Exceptionally smooth Michelob. Where you're going, it's Michelob. And by Skoll Long Cut Smoke.
Salad on the play was incomplete and almost picked off again.
Well, they had Lucia Smith there, also
There, Steve Potter, recently acquired by Buffalo. The San Francisco 49ers have a third down and 10. Passes have been the nemesis of the Saints today and actually throughout the season. Wilson has had a lot of tempers. Quick ride hook.
The Seattle Seahawks, one of the lovely cheerleaders, entertaining this crowd.
incredible performance, and then of course Largent with 3 touchdowns.
We'll remind you that next Sunday the Cardinals will be involved with
Just inside their 40-yard line. They have ample time. 10:36 left in the game as they trail by 10 points.
That sprung Tony for the long gain. I don't know if you noticed.
I actually thought that it was LeClaire, 55, but I knew one of them was in there.
Third down, less than a yard.
Routes that can get open. I guess that's what.
Free agent 73, and last week he threw his 3rd pass of his career, and in 3 attempts he has 3 touchdowns. Hit Tony Hill last week.
That's not a bad record.
Cowboy, but it's a little early this year, and I'm sure Tom is not unhappy with these delay and game penalties. We'll be back in a moment. He raced under that high punt by Danny White. He doesn't kick the ball far. He kicks it. The Miami Dolphins by 10. We'll be right back. Six-point spread with 14-16 remaining in the game. Minnesota.
Next Saturday on CBS.
Wins against them. Buffalo's defense is fired up. Buffalo has established.
Strange to say, but if there are NFL games played next Sunday, here are the games you'll see. Either the Rams at Philadelphia, or Tampa Bay at Detroit, or Dallas at Minnesota. That's following the NFL Today next Sunday on CBS Sports. Philadelphia won today.
The swashbucklers of Tampa Bay. Right now trying to get the fans stirred up. Less than a sellout here at Tampa Bay Stadium.
CBS Sports, a doubleheader. College football. First game, Michigan Wolverines against Ohio State. That was live at noon Eastern Time. Ohio State beat Northwestern 52-3 yesterday, and a win next week against Michigan would put them into the Rose Bowl against USC. That's
Long after the game is over, NBC Sports is still on the line. Dial 1-900-226-8000 for NBC.
And Plunkett is over talking to his head coach, Tom Flores, and what they cannot afford to do right now.
Streets like that and be an average guy.
You better be good. Oklahoma's offensive line is bigger than the Chicago Bears.
a lot of teams this year is how good is Tampa Bay?
Well, Tampa Bay's very good, and they have a good chance of making the playoffs, Jack.
Tampa Bay 6, Dallas nothing, but the Cowboys are knocking on the Buccaneers' door.
They have been embraced by a nation. They are.
The Saints scored the first quarter on a pass from Bobby Hebert to Hobie Brenner, and then the Browns came back in the second period on a 70-yard pass from Bernie Kosar to Clarence Weathers.
Bombs were in force here in the Astrodome, but they distributed.
They got the muscle. Funny you'd mention that.
Johnson got 5.
Each of these teams lost their first game. The Redskins lost to Dallas, and the Seahawks lost to Kansas.
Here, this is a good position to pass from. When you get 15 yards, much closer than this, it gets difficult to pass.
An overtime game. New coaches, new philosophy, new players on the club, and the same goes for the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City, by the way, is 2 out of 3 in overtime.
Well, we'll find out when we come back. 9:37 to go, 20-14. The Chiefs lead it.
Off return. He's been doing a lot of running because he was the guy.
The Chicago Bears have owned this game so far. The 5-0 Bears and the
yard per catch average. Last year, despite only 14 catches, he averaged 27.9 per catch for the Rams. He's got the speed. Matter of fact, the Cowboys
can't really teach that and coach that either, and I think the coaching staff for the Rams are handling it the right way. And then when Eric Dickerson came to the Rams, they knew they had the pride.
Well, I was all set to talk about Bryson Manor and his sack.
Yeah.
I mean, the quarterback position is one where they like to keep 3, and Kevin's
At Riverfront Stadium, sellout crowd for the Steelers. And the Bengals, the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Don't believe what I told
trying
that.
to move in.
Play with that old-time enthusiasm. They got a bunch of guys that are kind of really having a lot of fun playing, and it's showing up in that one-loss record.
Well, they get down to the basics.
They seem like it. They're really
big
good.
guys. They put the big guy on the big guy, and they go after one another.
Well, they continue to work.
The nose tackle, he lines right up on the ball.
3 with 1:08 remaining in the half.
A lot of sunshine, a festive mood here at the
wide open in the end zone. Instead of picking up 6 points, they create a turnover.
Is sponsored by Chevrolet. Chevrolet is USA 1, and USA 1 is taking charge. And by Memorex cassette tape.
Yeah, I want to see us try to explain that. We need somebody like Professor Irwin Corey or somebody to explain that. Every year about this time, that is about as...
Not scoring last week in that entire game against Indianapolis, and now getting dangerously close to being shut out here through the first half in the Kingdom.
We had a victory today. We'll be going against these Green Bay Packers. We'll see if Lynn Dickey gets back. The second half of the doubleheader will be Philadelphia against Dallas. John, you and I will be in Pittsburgh as the Rams take on those Steelers.
In Green Bay, I mean, a lot of people thought it would be Green Bay, Chicago, and Detroit in that NFC Central, but without Lynn Dickey, they're a totally different team.
Matt Barr teeing up the football. This onside kick with
Hop around the stadium.
Well, they gave the guy
The first thing, and then I think the other one was downfield on a
fumble it. A foul has been committed by the New England Patriot touching the ball, so he was gambling. Back in a moment. On an exchange in the third quarter, Adger Armstrong, who can really belt you on the special teams of Houston, made the stop. We'll be back.
Seattle has come back to take the lead on that field goal by Norton Johnson.
One on the left is on the right. The one in the middle is the Methodist.
Pittsburgh Steelers.
But it's still early.
Oakland, of course.
City record for attempts, completions, and yardage. And would you have ever thought anybody could have passed the great Lenny Dawson, the great pass quarterback for the Kansas City?
From Bartkowski to Jackson.
The 70s, a sellout crowd on hand to see the Buffalo Bills and the Cincinnati Bengals.
Watering him down.
The Jets lead. Chicago's coming back. And San Francisco leads. Pittsburgh won on a 22-yard field goal by Gary Anderson.
Well, each team came away. Washington had 15 plays, missed a field goal.
late in the third quarter here now. 34-10. The Falcons are out front, and they have
Baltimore Colts.
Long after the game is over, NBC Sports is still on the line. Dial 1-900-226-8000 for NBC.
And Plunkett is over talking to his head coach, Tom Flores, and what they cannot afford to do right now.
Streets like that and be an average guy.
You better be good. Oklahoma's offensive line is bigger than the Chicago Bears.
The Bengals are here. Ben Zoo is here. He is a tiger that they keep leading around too close to.
A lot of teams this year is how good is Tampa Bay?
Well, Tampa Bay is very good, and they have a good chance of making the playoffs, Jack.
At the moment, you can see the officials breaking up a huddle. They talk about the different rules that apply during the final 2 minutes of the game. Hank Stram, you and I will be in the Meadowlands tomorrow night for the
Tampa Bay 6, Dallas nothing, but the Cowboys are knocking on the Buccaneers' door.
Oldsmobile, who invite you to test drive a new Oldsmobile soon at your nearest Oldsmobile dealer.
Philadelphia 7, Dallas nothing. First quarter, 4:44 remaining.
Game that by Walter Payton on the first series of the game. The defenses have taken over. When we go back,
They have been embraced by a nation. They are.
The Saints scored the first quarter on a pass from Bobby Hebert to Hobie Brunner, and then the Browns came back in the second period on a 70-yard pass from Bernie Kosar to Clarence Weathers.
Bombs were in force here in the Astrodome, but they distributed.
They got the muscle.
Funny you'd mention that.
Johnson got 5.
Each of these teams lost their first game. The Redskins lost to Dallas, and the Seahawks lost to Kansas.
Here, this is a good position to pass from. When you get 15 yards, much closer than this, it gets difficult to pass.
An overtime game. New coaches, new philosophy, new players on the club, and the same goes for the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City, by the way, is 2 out of 3 in overtime.
Well, we'll find out when we come back. 9:37 to go, 20-14. The Chiefs lead it.
Kickoff return.
He's been doing a lot of running because he was the guy.
The Chicago Bears have owned this game so far. The 5-0 Bears and the
Yard per catch average. Last year, despite only 14 catches, he averaged 27.9 per catch for the Rams. He's got the speed. Matter of fact, the Cowboys
can't really teach that and coach that either, and I think the coaching staff for the Rams are handling it the right way.
Well, Gary Ellis been a find for Green Bay as they've jumped in front of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's a key game in the NFC.
And then when Eric Dickerson came to the Rams, they knew they had the pride.
Well, I was all set to talk about Bryson Manor and his sack.
Yeah. I mean, the quarterback position is one where they like to keep 3, and Kevin.
At Riverfront Stadium, sellout crowd for the Steelers and the Bengals, the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Don't believe what I told
trying
that.
to move in.
Play with that old-time enthusiasm. They got a bunch of guys that are kind of really having a lot of fun playing, and it's showing up in that one-loss record.
Well, they get down to the basics.
They seem like it.
It's
Really
the big
good.
guys. They put the big guy on the big guy, and they go after one another.
Well, they continue to work.
The nose tackle, he lines right up on the ball.
3 with 1:08 remaining in the half.
A lot of sunshine, a festive mood here at the
wide open in the end zone. Instead of picking up 6 points, they create a turnover.
Seattle has come back to take the lead on that field goal by Lon Johnson.
One on the left is on the right. The one in the middle is the Methodist.
Pittsburgh Steelers.
But it's still early.
Oakland, of course.
City record for attempts, completions, and yardage. And would you have ever thought anybody could have passed the great Lenny Dawson, the great pass quarterback for the Kansas City?
From Bartowski to Jackson.
The 70s, a sellout crowd on hand to see the Buffalo Bills and the Cincinnati Bengals.
Watering him down. The Jets lead. Chicago's coming back. And San Francisco leads. Pittsburgh won on a 22-yard field goal by Gary Anderson.